Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining the finale session. I'm Amit Chopra, MD Shoes and Accessories. Ever since the lockdown, the Indian consumer's appetite for shopping online has been rising steadily, which brings a huge opportunity for the international brands. According to India Brand Equity Foundation reports, India's e-commerce industry witnessed a 31% growth in order volume in the third quarter of 2020. IBEF estimates that the market will be worth 120 billion in the current year, a massive jump from 38.5 billion in 2017. It is expected to reach 200 billion by 2026, throwing open a huge opportunity. But having your products there in the market does not mean that you have a brand. You may have great products, but nobody knows your brand, which means that you still have to sell maybe only 1/10 the price of your competition. Brand building does not happen overnight. Then there are brand failure stories. Massive US coffee chain, Starbucks, ended up with tons of melted ice macchiatos when it tried to push it into Australia in 2000. Much like Target's failed leap to the Canadian market. Starbucks went down under with similar thoughts. Aussies act the same as Americans, so why wouldn't their coffee drinking habits be the same? Starbucks proved to be too expensive. The truth is, when building out international operations, it's a delicate balance of timing and understanding the cultural nuances. Get it wrong and it may cost you more than a little humiliation and a pile of cash. History has shown that good ideas fail all the time. And when expanding into unknown waters, businesses need to be more careful. Today, we have a great panel of brands that have forayed into India, charting and treating their way through its geography. I, along with Vikas Bagga, a business consultant, would be moderating the session. Let's hear from Mr. Ajinder Singh, Managing Director, Elters, the Indian license partner of Pierre Cardin. Probably you'll have to help me pronounce it the right way. Mr. Singh, a soft-spoken and docile personality, an extensive experience in the footwear industry, has a deep understanding of retail and shoes. So there is a strong rhetoric of make in India and then having a more resilient manufacturing sector and reducing the dependence on imports. However, what we are finding is that things have actually still not fallen in place so far. Going forward, I feel policymakers are not going to make life easy for any of the investors or who want to do business in India. This kind of muddling through is going to be a new normal. What are you planning as an international brand with European roots? How are you planning to tackle such issues? Please.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks, Vikas. I guess we are a little different than the typical either export or domestic manufacturer that we have a 25-year history in understanding how to manufacture shoes in the country because quality leather footwear has been made in India for a very long time. So there is good grassroots infrastructure and support for that available. The challenge, if we look at it from an international perspective, is one of complexity. In India, the legislation is improving, but we are unable to remove complexity or uncertainty for people like us who want to be 100% compliant, which is what causes the friction. The way we work around it is that in our 25-year history, we've understood how to plan our cycles and manage the complexity. Is where our expertise comes in. But for Make in India to be internationally competitive is another whole ball game. You need speed, you need quality, you need price, you need timeliness, which an individual company cannot do on its own. An individual company is always reliant on an ecosystem of suppliers, and no matter how good you are, you're only as good as your supply chain. So I think the challenges in India, we've come a long way in the last 10, 20 years in the technology of our suppliers and the quality of our suppliers. But the complexity of the system is something that challenges any manufacturer in the country today. And somehow we are unable to correct for that. Like a simple thing like HSN code for footwear. We are the only country in the world where the reporting takes place up to the 8th decimal point. By now, we should have been coming down to the 2-digit system. So similar to this, at every level, there is an unintended complexity, which for some reason we are unable to get modified for a long time on the ground. Whether it is, though GST has made things a lot simpler, a lot of the laws have become a lot more clearer, but there is still tremendous amount of complexity in managing working in India. So that's what my simple point is. Always look at legislation from the point of view of complexity. Don't have 20 tax rates. Don't have if, ands, and buts. Have very simple, clean legislation that is easy for everyone to follow. Whether it's GST or anything else, or labor laws, which we hope will be simplified going forward. But again, I think the challenge is in the fine print. And also a lot of our laws in the recent past have defaulted to criminal charges for lapses, which is a lack of confidence in the industry maybe. But that's also another big part of the legislation that could improve. Over to you, Amit.
Mr. Singh has very rightly brought in a very pertinent point regarding ease of doing business. Very relevant. And it's something that the existing sort of multinational brands who are already operating in India must have really gone through. If we take another perspective, this time from Dr. N. Mohan. Dr. N. Mohan is the CEO of Crocs India. This brand set its foot in UK way back in 1825. So really iconic brand. Dr. N. Mohan has been pioneering a lot of industry causes, a lot of federations, and has got great experience in manufacturing, sourcing, brand building, and setting up new projects. Dr. Mohan, I have a twofold question to be asked of you. A, what is it that's making brands such as Crocs so relevant in India when a country already has multiple, big leading, both national and international, casual, formal, and lifestyle brands, as well as private labels and white labels? Still Crocs obviously still is dominating. Two, integrating with Make in India, which the prime sustenance mode, for Crocs to retain its cutting edge in the Indian market. If you could answer both of them, please.
Yeah, to answer your first question, Crocs, as you rightly put it, it's a 200-year-old legacy brand. And, the Indian consumer, if you look at the Indian consumer market, 7% of the market is premium and luxury. It's about 3,000 rupees and above. And if you look at Indian consumer, especially, many of the brands make a mistake in India. They think India is a 3-city strategy. They think India is Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore. That is what India is about. But if you look at this country, the COVID experience, and I'd been to some 60 cities in India before I launched a different brand when I joined this group. And thereafter, when I took over Crocs, I had been doing it for the past 1 year or so. If you look at it, the real aspirational population lives in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities in the country. And Crocs being an aspirational brand, for many of them, it means success. It's really something which is more fashionable and comfortable. So I feel, we are very, very relevant for this growing and emerging country in India. Answering to the second question, in terms of Atmanirbhar Bharat and why, you would know that Crocs had been in this country for the past 35 years, sourcing uppers, sourcing leather, then sourcing uppers, then hand-holding Indian shoe manufacturing. We buy about 12.5 million to 14 million pairs from this country to various markets across the world, which is about $160 million. Last year, because of COVID, it went down, but we have plans to buy close to 140 to 150 million dollar worth goods from India. As if you compare against 2.3 billion US dollar of footwear exports, we're about 7 to 8% of the country's exports today. And plus, whatever we do in India, like for example, whatever we sell in India, it's not the substandard stuff. We take a lot of pride in Indian manufacturing. And if you do close to 60% of the product what we sell in this country comes from one of the best factories, finest factories in India. Clarks, you must understand, like it is, see, unless and until, you get used to some better products, the country's industry will not grow. Like, for example, any country, be it Brazil, be it any, I'd had the experience and opportunity of working in Europe for many years and in China for many years, especially in Shanghai, and in Brazil also for a few years. And if you look at all these countries, the way the export industry sets the quality standards for the domestic industry. The domestic industry, whereas piggybacks on the export industry, basically because in terms of fashion, in terms of quality, in terms of control. Clarks as a product, comfort is in center of everything we do. We believe if you look at the Clarks as a brand, there are certain things which comes to your mind: heritage, integrity, and honesty. And these are some of the words which will come into style and comfort. Of course, it's there. When we talk about these kind of words, heritage, it talks about our 200 years, almost 200 years of shoemaking experience across various geographies, across various markets. That's one thing. So a rich heritage and a rich knowledge. The second thing in terms of integrity and honesty, building the product which has not only, it doesn't have ethically banned chemicals, it doesn't have, the business should have an ethical business practices. In fact, to upload a factory, we take about 6 to 8 months. So we in turn, the honesty is, it's about building the product. It's like giving everything what we can. And then there's a lot of research which goes into it. Comfort is center of everything. The shoe need to be, you can ask, a shoe which is not comfortable, why should any wear and something like that. If you look at it, yesterday also I was saying in another forum, footwear, for example, our foot, basically 26%, our foot contains 26 bones, 30 joints, 107 ligaments, and about 19 muscles. And all our nerves end in our feet. If your feet is not comfortable, your body is not, like your physical health is disturbed. If your physical health is disturbed, your mental health is disturbed. So there is a big connection between the comfort, the foot health, and the physical health and the mental health. So we do everything which is relevant. And so you need to have, the Indian industry need to get exposed to some of these quality products and some of these quality parameters, then only the industry will improve. Unless and until you are challenged by way of competition, by way of this kind of qualityness, it will not. So we are very, very relevant to answer your first question. To answer your second question, we in fact encourage, as I said, 7 to 8% of country. If I add whatever I buy in India, and if I put my plan over the next 2-3 years, we could be well between 10 to 12% of the country's buy production, in terms of exports and whatever we buy totally. So that's a great opportunity for India. And there are many lines which we import from Vietnam and other places. We are looking for people, who from Indian origin. The other day I was mentioning to them, there is one style from Vietnam. In another forum, I was saying we sell about 12 million pairs of just one style. And it's that is something which there are opportunities, unless and until people get exposure to such products and opportunities, how will you kind of get the inspiration? We get the inspiration by seeing someone who's better than us. So that's what we bring to the table in India. Have I answered your question correctly?
Absolutely, yes.
And that's what I wanted to tell you, share it with you.
Thank you so much. In fact, you've spoken of the user well-being. That you actually touched the nerve chord. It's so very important. That's how legacy brands are. 200 years of legacy and 35 years of operation in India, I think makes you say all of that. Quite wonderful. Let me take another perspective now from another panelist, and that's happy to introduce to you Manoj Taneja, who's head of digital business in Crocs India. Manoj, are you there with me?
Yes,
Manoj?
Yes, Mr. Vikas. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now very well. So Crocs, worldwide, Crocs India has been having a fairy tale success story. And from a 200-year-old brand that we just spoke, which is Clarks, we're talking about a brand now which is just about 2 decades old. Not a legacy brand, actually, but trying to create legacy through a lot of innovative things that's been doing over the past 2 decades. India specifically has been a matter of pride that today Indian operations are probably number 5 or number 6 in the overall sort of the pie that Crocs globally has, and lots of it has got to do with over the last year or two when there's been so much of progression. The brand has been known globally for the iconic cloths and the different variations that is launched. The Croc-like material, so to speak, has really added so much value to this entire proposition. And interestingly, just following the global pitch, the brand has been hiring consistently influencers and brand ambassadors locally, the ones who are known globally and the ones who are known locally in those respective countries. So there's a lot of traction, there's a lot of stickiness in the brand that we can see. Manoj, all of last year was super relevant for you. The brand actually was relevant pre sort of COVID also, but during COVID and during the later part of the pandemic, the sales have really hit the roof. It's been phenomenal sales that's been happening, and one of the key reasons for that is that there's been a lot of adoption in even countries like India, towards the digital space. People are buying online. But while the brand has created newer benchmarks, as it set up new standards, how do you then sort of retain a cutting edge going forward, considering that you do not have any sourcing base in India? Will that not be a sort of hurdle going forward?
Thank you, Mr. Vikas. I think that's an interesting question. So, so you rightly said that we were one of the fortunate brands who got benefited from COVID because we were a relevant product in these times. People were working from home and demand increased. The sales mix was happening in terms of where the consumer was going to buy the product, and that is where we could see a shift of contribution of revenue coming from offline versus digital. And definitely digital is a channel where consumer was going and looking for to buy the products for the use. And I think that is where we have got this growth from. In fact, 2020 was a year which was the best year for us ever. And digital definitely had a role to play in it. How we intend to, kind of sustain this growth that has come on board, not for the brand, but for the channel also, is by adopting a digital first strategy. And, it's a term that we on and off keep hearing from, a lot of people, but actually it means for us is when we say digital first, we want to be digital first by the engagement we want to drive with consumers in digital space, by launching digital exclusives, by doing early launches on digital space, by making sure that we are in stock on our core styles in digital across the platform, so that availability is something which is there. We want to leverage consumer movements through the digital properties and digital platforms. So we keep resonating and keep being relevant to the consumers where they are. Providing elevated content to the consumers on all the platforms where we touch base with the consumers. So I think this growth has definitely been driven by digital, and digital has been the fastest growing channel and will continue to be so. So we intend to sustain the growth through a digital first approach, and that digital first approach will reflect not only in terms of product but also in terms of experiences. And second, I think what is important is to keep, stay ahead of competition. And in order to do that, we also intend to follow the same approach what Amazon follows, the theory of following a day one approach. Recently, someone asked Jeff Bezos, how does day two look like? Because Amazon has this theory of, it's still day one. So every day they come to work, they take it as a day one of their startup. And what Jeff Bezos answered was, day two is stasis. It's followed by irrelevance. It's followed by painful decline and followed by death. So there is no day two. So, the world is changing, and world is changing faster than before, and brands will have to keep up pace with that change if they want to sustain. We all know a lot of brands which were industry leaders at their peak time, brands like Kodak, BlackBerry, Nokia, Polaroid, but they're no more there because they couldn't stay relevant to the change which is happening at a faster pace. So I think brands will need to keep up pace with the changing behaviors of the consumer, will need to be there at the right places where consumer is going, and staying ahead of competition by keeping up pace with all the change that is happening around.
Wonderful. In fact, yours is a listed organization, and I'm sure with lots that India is doing, the market cap is going to be going up progressively. It's going to be helping the business globally also. So, compliments to you.
Thank you, Mr. Vikas.
When I hear this word digital, it gives me jitters now. Many years back, there was this word called cancer, then something called as malls, then came online. A few years back, it was disruption of business. And last year it was COVID. Now this word digital is scary now. But anyhow, let's move on. Let's get Sumit Jain on air. He heads the digital department of Birkenstock. The brand is available in select stores and online platforms now in India. And its average selling price is about 5,000, I believe. So Sumit, Gen Z and millennials are tech savvy, always connected with their cell phones. I have two boys and I see them always on the phone. So in order to carve out a marketing strategy, it is essential to tap these mediums and grab eyeballs. Brands have invested in TikTok, Insta Reels, influencers, word of mouth. So, but what I believe now is the word of mouth is not completely trusted. Consumers are curious to know if their favorite influencers are actually using those products in their lives. So since last year, there is a redefinition of ROI from return on investment to return on integrity. Post-lockdown, the content consumption skyrocketed as the pace of digital adoption, got accelerated. One thing India can probably offer than other countries in Southeast Asia, which they cannot, is the market. So how do you plan to leverage the Indian market digitally?
Thanks, Amit. And that's a very relevant question in today's time. Who would not like to be present digitally, right? And it all comes down to one question, where your audience is and who do you really want to reach out to. So talking about the millennials and the Gen Z audience currently, which is in India contributing to almost 60 to 65% of the current population, right? And that the survey has shown that an average teenager spends close to 7 hours on the screen. So the average screen time is almost 7 hours, and that is excluding the work hours that I'm talking about. So all these has been proven by, you can see the stock market in US, Facebook, Google, Netflix, all these have been seen an upward trend where it has been difficult times for all the other brands. So it is a clear trend that has been proven, and digital is where the people are. So that is clear, and that is very evident that the brands needs to adopt to these times and modify the strategies to stay relevant in these times. So as a brand, talking about Birkenstock. So Birkenstock is fairly a new entrant in the market, and we have just been over a year. Although the legacy goes down to over 2 centuries. The brand started in 1774, and it's been present more than 90 countries globally. And in India, it's been just over a year. So for us, digital is a very important medium, and it is for us also. It's digital first, and all our strategies and all our planning and all our budgeting strategy is kept in mind that we have to invest major portion of it on the online. So if I talk about our strategy with respect to the marketing, so I would break it down into 3 parts. One is the media that you own, and the media that you earn, and the media that you pay for. So when you talk about the owned media, the first and foremost is your own website. So that will continue to be our number one focus. Then that will continue to be our number one priority. So we will continue to adopt strategies. We will continue to launch our products. We will continue to convey our stories through our own website and through our own social media handles, which is through our Instagram account, through our Facebook account, and through our own blogs and articles that we publish. So our priority and focus continue to invest time and energy on our own media. The second is earned media. Earned media is basically for the recognition and for the articles that you do not pay for, and you are so much well known in the market that people start talking about it, and that is what has been happening in the globally about the brand. And it's a true fact that we do not really pay any of the celebrities to endorse our product, and that has been a differentiating factor for Birkenstock from other brands. And we have seen so many celebrities in US and Europe, endorsing the brand for its comfort, for its tradition, and for its quality. So that is something that we want to build in India, but I think it's too early for us to get that earned media because we are a fairly new brand and we want to create that awareness in the brand. So for us, the second strategy is the paid media. The paid media is where you start getting paid audience, you start advertising to the newer audience, talking them about the brand, the ethos, what does the brand stand for, and that is how you reach out to the newer audience. And talking about this, there are certain more things which organically pays over time, like for example, even paid media, you have these Google and Facebooks, right? So Google is something that we are we keep it at the top because we want to be more intent driven in searches. We want to be the top results when people search for footwear which is more relevant to their footwear health, orthopedic. So that is how we are making ourselves relevant in India. We want to reach out to the to the relevant audience. Price is a big factor in India because India is a price sensitive market. So we want to, our target audience is very different from the other mass brands that we have in India. As you said that our price is somewhere around 5,000, 6,000 rupees. So we have to be very careful about to what kind of audience that we are reaching out to. So we want to reach out to the right platforms where we have the right audience. We want to reach out to the right consumer group, and obviously talking about the heritage, the quality, the tradition that we have passed on over centuries and centuries. So that is what our strategy will be for India. And obviously, it will be a digital first strategy, and the focus would be to create awareness and invest time, energy, and money in our own media, which is our web shop and our social media accounts.
Right, thanks. So bottom line is content is the king.
Absolutely.
Okay, Dr. Mohan, we already know that the world is not the same, and so aren't the businesses and their marketing and communication policies. So after months in the pandemic, one thing is clear: the rules that the industry has lived by for years will not apply any longer. The new age consumer now believe in brand democracy more than brand loyalty. By buying a particular brand, they show their vote of trust in them. While businesses have been struggling and overcoming various kinds of risks, the biggest of all has been the reputation risk. So is this the time for brands to move beyond storytelling, put action behind the words, create powerful campaigns? Please.
Thank you, Amit. And one thing I will tell you, our brains are wired to better remember stories more than data, facts, and figures. Right? And after all, it's the magic of these brand stories that create positive experience and make people want to buy products. Stories, when narrated in the right way, help ideas build into successful businesses. This has been our biggest belief. I believe personally the consumer will buy brands when they care. I also believe that the brands with purpose and stories do better. Brands with purpose and stories will do better. To me, sales, marketing, and business is all about great stories that create brands. This is my personal perception, to answer your first question. But I'd agree in today's business landscape, where brands are an extension of consumers' lives. Brands should have the audacity to puff their chests out and show their true positive response, the reputational risk, which you mentioned actually. And Clarks have been doing this successfully over many years. At Clarks, we are led the way in superior quality and comfort with footwear right from the beginning, driven to achieve only one thing, that is the shoe perfection. The shoe need to be perfect. And it is deeply rooted at the heart of the Clarks brand. We are founded on this philosophy, and that comfort is not only vital for our well-being, but it should be also available to everybody. Nearly 200 years later, almost 1825, which Vikas just mentioned in the opening, the same philosophy is something which you will find it prevalent in everything we do in our business. That's what I would like to say. It's something beyond storytelling, but nevertheless, it's very, very important for the brands to kind of live up to the reputation what they have created for themselves. The integrity and those honesty, those are the things which I kind of pointed out when we talk about our brand, the heritage, the 200 years of shoemaking experience. So those are the kinds which, so we have to live up to it, and it's a great responsibility, and the reputational risk is much more important for us from our brand is concerned. That's what I would like to tell you.
Wonderful.
Right.
Thank you.
Dr. Mohan, you keep bringing us back to heritage and legacy, and how powerful is that narrative? At the end of the day, it really stands for value proposition. And to Sumit, to you, I can't resist, but obviously comment 247 years. Are you 247-year young brand or 247-year-old brand? How would you like to? Just a passing comment before I go on to Ajinder Singh. So, how do you really view that? 247 years. Amazing age.
As you know, age is just a number. I will not let 247 define the age of the brand. We are fairly young, and to be honest, I think the last 5 to 7 years has really changed the landscape for us. So I would say the last 10 to 20 years is really where we have really grown and established us as a brand. Initially we were known for our heritage, but we did not really push that into the market. So to answer your question, I would say that we are still a young brand right now, despite of being 270 years old, 247 years old.
Please continue to be young. My next poser would be to Mr. Ajinder Singh. If I can have you back, sir.
Hi.
Pierre Cardin, quite like Clarks and Birkenstock again, is a legacy brand. And unfortunately for us, we lost the icon, Mr. Pierre Cardin, I guess, later part of 2020. He's left a wonderful legacy. My thing to you would be that, why Pierre Cardin in India, at least in the footwear and accessories category, is the latest, is a new entrant, so to speak. But, the team per se is handled by, the leadership team is head by experienced people. And to share with everybody, Mr. Ajinder Singh is one of the pioneers or veterans of the footwear and accessories licensing business here in India. Brought in Pierre Cardin just not to India, but to a few neighboring countries also. But the brand already enjoys a wonderful sort of a legacy, an iconic status. And I'm sure there's a strategy in place to set it up, to operate in differentials, considering there's already a clutter in the market. At the end of the day, licensing business is also about, putting in that trust and gaining that trust and confidence. So there must be a great strategy in place, a composite strategy. So what is it, sir, that you actually pursuing to make this relationship go very, very strong and long and a very happy association?
I think because, like everybody has said, you have to be on the mediums where people are, whether it's digital or not digital. What has changed is the fact that your communication is no longer, earlier it was ROI for the company. Communication is now turned on its head. You have to understand what is the ROI for the consumer to engage with you. That's the fundamental point of communication today, that for a consumer to spend time on your site or your message, what is the return that he is getting is critical. So all communication is designed from that point onwards, that in any time interface with your customers, he has to get a return on the time spent, whether it's on your website, whether it's on your blog, whether it's paid advertising. That's number one. Number two is, with the digital medium, there is a host of analytics now that allow you to more clearly target your consumers wherever they are, try and segregate the consumer, their desires and their aspirations. And the third part, that is an evolving form of digital marketing, which is yet to be started in India, is what we call automated digital marketing, where algorithms are able to tailor individual messages to consumers for the brand. So that's the journey, that you start from a simple technology, but in digital marketing you now need to also build a lot of technology skills for it to succeed. Is the way we are looking at it, is the way we are investing in it.
What about the product side? The do you need to consistently take validations, from the principals in terms of setting up the product line? Or how different it is from what you see globally regarding footwear in India? How different is the distinction?
It is similarly positioned. It's elegant footwear. It's affordable luxury. It is similar in many ways. Obviously, the price point, whether affordable luxury would have a different price point in Europe versus India versus China. So while we're positioning for the similar customers, the prices are in rupees. That's the distinction we're doing. The brand itself has always been a kind of a cutting edge in its. It was the first brand to do menswear, luxury brand to do menswear. It was the first brand to do ready to wear. It was the first brand to go global across the world. Mr. Cardin's legacy in terms of being sort of way ahead in the future, and his products remain even relevant today. Idea is to carry that forward in terms of to fulfill the aspirations of the consumers in India. So I don't think we are a late entrant. I think we are catering to a larger aspiring class today than there ever was.
Quite agree to that, very well. Manoj, if I can just come back to you now. While hype and necessity typically, sort of made this entire game recent time, quite up and quite progressive for brand like Crocs and some other brands in the same category. And you seem to be in control of the sort of a winning formula. But the brand would need to do something different, either on the innovation side or on the servicing side, to sort of, continue to catch the attraction of the customers, going forward. There's so much of globalization versus localization pitch. How do you think you can now remain relevant going forward, considering you already have an iconic status within the overall global pie for Crocs also, with number 5, number 6? So those pressures would also be there. So how do you remain relevant going forward now?
I think, Mr. Vikas, you mentioned the answer in your question itself. So we recently had an international digital summit, and the strategy that we have to keep winning is fairly simple. It's a 3-way strategy. Follow the same strategy across the world, because as a brand, and we have been able to put all the things together in last 3-4 years in terms of now 75% of the products that we sell across the world are overlapping between all the markets, except balance 20%, which might be relevant to specific market. For example, lined clogs in heavy snowfall or winter markets, right? So same strategy being circulated across all the markets, and the idea is that we keep learning from each other, and not every market has to go through that learning curve, right? If someone has done a good job and now they know that it's something which is proven to be success for the brand, we just pass on that to other markets and we replicate the same thing in other markets. It gives us a advantage in terms of how we win with the same thing in other market in a faster manner, right? So strategy is one thing. Second thing is excellence in execution, and third is innovation. So innovation, since you mentioned, we're definitely keeping it as a center part of our strategy, because how we are defining different consumer segments, and all the strategy in terms of product or marketing is being designed from that consumer segment perspective. Whether we call it millennials or Gen Z, we're defining these customer segments because these segments are different from each other. They have different behaviors. Talking of Gen Z, they contribute to 40% of global population today, and it is going to be increasing. And that is why you see a brand like us, there are many brands who are now focusing on Generation Z, and you have to focus or devise your strategy differently for them because they behave in a different manner. Talking of Gen Z, recently again we were having a brainstorming session and we figured out that Gen Z is very conscious of brands who are giving back to the society or are sustainable. If you want to succeed in long run, you have to think on those lines. You might not have done sustainability stories in past, but you have to come up with sustainability stories in future if you want to, keep relevant and keep your resonance alive with Generation Z. So innovation is definitely going to be there, I think. And then talking of Gen Z, I think a brand should know which is their customer, and then that is only when they can have a right strategy of how to keep winning. And Mr. Ajinder Singh was talking about personalization. That's another mega trend which is picking up. And when I say personalization, I'm not talking about only product, but also personalization in terms of experience. And digital gives you that a technology advantage that where you can actually provide more relevant content to different audiences, and that is where your chances of engaging with the customer or selling to the consumer becomes higher, because if you're providing the right content to a person, chances are that the outcome will be as compared to better as compared to a static content that is being pushed towards a larger audience. So I think we're definitely keeping innovation at the center of our strategy in terms of product and experiences both. And personalization is another thing which I think will keep us ahead of the competition, because we have some advantage there as compared to other brands.
Wonderful. So you already preempted the scenario and already joined the dots. Wonderful. Good to know that.
Thank you.
Interesting, huh? Though you make me feel old, I'm not a part of Gen Z anymore. Coming back to you, Sumit, new product innovations is, I come from the old school. So new product innovations, were incubated by clusters of for me, it's like a orchestra where there are a lot of people involved in innovation. It's not just one man job and he just wakes up and goes on with it. So if you take that as an orchestra, if product leaders are the conductors, working from home requires a whole new paradigm for how these roles need to evolve to be effective now. Working from home may work well for existing product tracks, according to me. However, when developing new product lines, most big breakthroughs are made with impromptu shoulder taps. I believe that for product innovation, even the smartest and the most capable remote teams find it difficult to be away from the mothership. Virtual meetings, at least in my office, I know, they end up being status updates rather than real, roll up sleeves kind of work. There are always 10 times more progress made when teams come together in physical locations. No matter how similar the remote office environment was, there was a FOMO, the Gen Z word, fear of missing out in decision making and progress when things happen out of sight and out of mind. So how is your company planning to take this work from home thing?
Amit, what you just said reminded me of a slogan which was, which is relevant to today's time, and it belongs to CCD. A lot can happen over a cup of coffee. So that's something which still remains true. That essence of face-to-face meeting, talking to each other in person, looking into each other's eye, seeing the body language, understanding the gestures, getting to know the hidden messages. That will, that cannot be substituted by anyhow in terms of the digital world. So, but looking at the today's scenario, the bottom line is that virtual is the way forward. So there's no doubts about that. So in one line, virtual meetings will continue to stay and it will not go away. And we as a company, as an organization, we need to, invest in our infrastructures, invest in our technological advancement, in our, the teams, the things that the teams are using, which will help them, having a smooth virtual meeting. So we need to start thinking on those lines. So whatever we wanted to happen in the next 3 years, because of the COVID, it has happened in 3 months, so that has really accelerated the pace at which the technological advancement was supposed to happen. So in my opinion, going forward, I'm very hopeful that the things will definitely improve, the vaccination coming into picture, and the people coming back to offices, meeting each other in person will come back into scenario, but there will always be a subconscious mind which will allow, which will tell you that you need to maintain a certain physical distance, you need to maintain a certain hygiene standards. So looking at that, I would say that both of these would go hand in hand. If you talk about face-to-face meeting and if you talk about virtual meetings, just thinking about how the nature of work would also define that, because if you're talking about a manufacturing sector or something which is not content driven, which is not fact driven, which is more on a physical touch and feel, when you're talking about fabrics, when you're talking about actual samples, you cannot do that over a virtual meeting. So that needs to happen over a face-to-face meeting. So this has to be planned out in, in a very strategic manner. All these things needs to start off. I think that it will start off with a face-to-face meeting where you take all these calls in the first meetings where you need to meet over each other and over a table and discuss these products. And then when you are through with your the ideas and your results and what you want to achieve, I think you can monitor your progress and you can talk over each other over a virtual meeting. So I would say it is how the companies will adopt to, because obviously, the biggest advantage of virtual meeting is that it is time efficient and it is cost efficient. And in these times, nobody wants to invest in unnecessarily cost. And traveling was one of the biggest costs that, a lot of companies incurred, especially the international brands. So all these advantages of cost being, being time efficient, cost efficient, getting larger audience on one click, I think this will play a major role going forward, and you need to take it advantage. You need to play to its advantages, right? So I would say the nature of job and the infrastructure that you have, and obviously, I'm sure that there will be a solution to substitute this touch and feel that you need in person. I'm sure there would be some technological advancement where you can have the 3D products sent over an email, through a picture, through a video, where you can take calls. So I think virtual is the way, but I think the trust, the confidence, the freedom that you used to enjoy over a face-to-face meeting, that is something that everyone will miss. And I definitely will miss that, in case if that doesn't happen in future.
Right.
So yeah. It'll go hand in hand, I would say.
You spoke about the face-to-face meetings, but you also interestingly spoke about traveling. Now that prompts me to ask something which is very relevant. If I can have Mr. Singh back, please. Yes, to you, Mr. Singh. Irrespective of the global brand operating in India, irrespective of the positioning that it's adopting, this value for money proposition is always under the scanner. While there hasn't been too much of traveling over the last 9 to 10 months' time, we as Indians have been traveling quite a bit to just about every part of the globe. But the same brand is available there at a higher price, right? There's a certain set of expectancy. And when the same brand, when sets its foot in India and is being sold in INR, as you spoke about earlier, still the value for proposition is still under the scanner. That very deeply, there's a lot of assessment that keeps happening. It becomes really a challenge for a brand to justify that value for money proposition. While brand communication is a great unifier, and I think gives you those kind of tools to obviously create that that hollow factor and that sort of that legacy and that that pitch. But what is that you intend to sort of do, brands such as yours, to get closely connected to the customer so that its value for proposition sort of hurdle is that mindset is diluted and sort of they get wedded to the brand on a sustainable basis?
Because I don't think there's any conflict in what we offer as a brand. We are offering international fashion, legacy, obviously international quality. We are able to offer a lot of our value in India because we are, unlike other countries, we are have the capability to design and manufacture and do the whole supply chain internally in India. The difference is that in other countries where you have 6-9 month lead times, you have manufacturing from halfway around the world. The markups that you need to cover the cost of what your inventory depreciation, your lead times, your inability to give the right product at the right time to the right consumer is very high. People like Zara have understood this. They're able to give quality products, fashionable products made in Europe at very, very reasonable prices. So it is a strategy through which you achieve a superior product at a good price and meet the aspirations. You do not dilute any of the brand qualities or product qualities to get there. So I think that is a distinction here, that the expertise that we have in India, we are able to deliver the same performance at a much more reasonable Indian price. But the brand quality and the product quality remains more or less the same.
How about the neighboring countries? Since you have rights for 4 neighboring countries also, how's that experience catching up? I mean, the Indian experience is helping you to have a great outreach in these countries also?
So definitely. In fact, some of the highest growth potential is now in terms of growth is in the neighboring countries. They seem like Bangladesh seems to have done very well in the last 5-10 years. It's where I guess India was 10 years, 15 years, 10, 20 years back. It is hungry for brands, hungry for quality products. And now they have the money, the earning income to fulfill those aspirations. Similarly, Sri Lanka till recently was doing very, very well as an international holiday destination. The local economy also has done very well in the last 5 years. So if you look at the neighboring countries, actually their growth rate in the last 5 years, I would say has possibly been higher than Indian growth rate. And so that makes it an enviable proposition to enter there at this time.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Quite heartening to note that.
It's quite interesting how Bangladesh has come up, in all respects, as a manufacturer, as a consumer. It's phenomenal. Let me come to Dr. Mohan again. So they say marketing without data is like driving with your eyes closed. So with digital marketing becoming stronger with every passing day, now it's very important to build strong databases and communicating directly with your customer. So how are you at Clarks? How are you going about it?
See, this COVID has taught us a lot of lessons. As many times in many forums, I have said that the unified commerce, rather, is the real vaccine for the retail COVID. Whatever. So we need to kind of, in fact, in one of the things which we recently, in fact, I did with ET, where we went in depth, we delved into in depth this thing. We have to kind of press the reset button. Some of the panelists also spoke about, how they need to do the complete rethinking and all. Data is the new oil. If it is not refined, it could lead into, we have heard about this expression, data is the new oil. So in Clarks, there are 2-3 things which we did. Number one, the information is available at various silos. It's available, but it need to be kind of put together. So we are kind of going in for the latest CRM this thing, which we are kind of implementing. We're in the implementation stage. I think by April we'll be ready. We are kind of completely thinking about what we are doing. And let me tell you, we have been focused on basically brick and mortar retail. We are present in about 600, 700 large format stores, and we have about 60 EBOs, basically focused, and very few, about 15% used to be our e-commerce sales, now in this year, in the COVID year, it's 40%. And going forward, the next 3-4 years, what we feel, we did a lot of data mining. In fact, we engaged someone to do some research and put us the next 3 to 4 years, how the country, let me give you some number. India has been fastest growing consumer in terms of per pair consumption. The CAGR growth is about 7.2% over the last 4 years. If I have to give you the numbers for China, it's 2.7%, UK is minus 11.4%, and America is about 2.7 or something like that. So I'm saying we have a phenomenal growth opportunity. And the data mining, which we did, the data analysis, which we did, which we said, current 50,000 crores estimate is going to go to say some 95,000 crores. Out of that, 55% is going to be organized retail, and 35% of that organized retail is going to be coming from your e-commerce. That's the kind of a latest data I'm talking about. It's something which very closely. I work with the Commerce Ministry and the Invest India and all the group, and we have put together a lot of information and other things. So we can't be complacent and then say that we will just kind of do the brick and mortar retail and others. So we need to completely rechange in our strategic thinking. So that's 2-3 things we did. We did some, we have kind of engaged. You will soon know that one of the largest, partners in terms of B2B, and that is going to catch. India is a country of about, even today, in the Western world, the retail is much more evolved. India still, a man goes to a shoe shop to buy shoes. It's not kind of evolved you go to a clothing retailer like a Zara or a departmental stores like a Debenham, and it is not evolved, or Al Corte. And having worked in India is not evolved, or to a food store like Tesco. Okay, it's evolving. It's going to take some more time and other this thing. But at the same time, we will have a last, the latecomer advantage, in the sense we will have access to the latest technology, like Mr. Ajinder Singh spoke about, how the AI intelligence and so many things. We are working on something like, for example, in e-commerce, what is the biggest challenge we have? Is the returns, right?
Yeah.
20 to 25% returns, is what you get in e-commerce business, which is killing your margins and other thing. We are kind of engaged with an innovation in Germany.
Mhm.
And which is going to kind of completely revolutionize the e-commerce business going forward. I'm telling you honestly, hand on heart, wait and watch. I can't divulge it, and I'm going to sign on the dotted line in the next few days, and which could kind of tell the consumer what correct size you have to buy when you come to my brand Clarks, because each fitting is different, and other thing in the feet is different. India is a multiracial society, and then we have got different fittings in this country. Okay, the CLRI is doing the Indian sizing system and stuff like that. But
Right.
so this is something which we are trying to kind of evolve, completely rethink the way from putting the consumer first, put the consumer hat, and then think from what a consumer would like to have from a brand like this. So that's a kind of a complete rechange, complete rethinking which we are going to have. And I would thank the COVID to make us think completely differently. In my 45 days of being quarantined in the UK, I went to see my family, and I had the chance of speaking with a lot of my friends across the world, and many of them are just fed up sitting at home. Someone said many things can happen over a cup of coffee, and you know the youngsters especially, they're just fed up sitting at home and working from home. They're just fed up, they just want to go out. And I think, and from India is concerned, the pent up demand is going to kind of, we are going to have a fantastic opportunity going forward. That's with that I would like to kind of summarize,
Right. So,
saying that we need to do a complete overall thinking on our digital this thing, and that's a new oil for us. Data is the new oil. That's what I would like to say. Thank you.
great. I think we've almost reached the end of time for today's session. And we have a question from one of our audience, Mr. Mohan Das. He wants to address this question to Crocs or Clarks. So how does the brand approach the environmental sustainability aspect? Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Okay, I don't know. Crocs can answer it, or I can answer it. Rooms over. You want? If you want me to go first,
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Like I tell you, we need to kind of number one, you start. Number one, in choice of materials, and choice. Like yesterday, I was talking about a new concept which we kind of introduced. Origin is the new product which we into, which consumes. There's no glue used in the shoe, less number of components, lighter soles, and better biodegradability. And we use the boxes also, which is FSC certified boxes. So basic thing is to make sure the shoe biodegrades faster than any other shoe. So those are the kind of things which are coming into the mind, and we are working on a completely a different this thing which could be a in thing going forward. In today, most of the shoes ends up in a landfill, and it takes between 50 years to 80 years to biodegrade and emitting all kind of gases. So we need to think completely differently. So from the Clark's perspective, the sustainability is the core of anything we do, everything we do in terms of that's why we call that brand as a full circle, because it uses all the recycled paper so that the virgin materials are preserved. And that's the kind of a thing it's evolving. We are continuously evolving and continuously thinking about new ways and means of kind of how we can reduce the carbon emissions, how we can do certain things forward. And that's what is the strategy going forward from our Clark's perspective.
Right. Manoj, would you like to respond to that?
I have an interesting thought here. So I think sustainability is something which doesn't have to be thought only from product lens. As an organization, you can add value to from sustainability lens through other ways also. I'll give an example. 85% of Crocs products, we don't use boxes. They simply come in a poly bag, right? Now, just consider the number of shoes we've sold over last 5 years, and how much have we saved for the world by not shelling those shoes in terms of boxes. That's also a sustainable story, right? I totally agree that maybe product is the first thing which can maybe contribute more in terms of sustainability back to the society. But that's also a way to give back to the society by not using boxes, which obviously takes raw material which can be of other uses, right? So I think it has to be thought from a holistic lens, and there could be other ways like the example that I gave you, and you can add to sustainability through other means also, if not product.
Sure. Thank you. I hope we've addressed Mr. Mohan Das' question. Time to conclude. What I feel, one way to think about business plan is to think about surfing waves. Every iconic brand, like all of you, every successful hidden champion was able to catch a powerful wave just at the right time. If you're too early or late, you'll go nowhere. So catch it just right and you'll get along. You'll profitable ride. It would be a profitable ride for all of you. I would like to leave a thought with all the audience here. Remember, the sun himself is weak when it first rises. It gathers strength and courage as the day goes by. It's finally time to come to end the excruciating pain I have given you all. Time to get some caffeine and beer. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Amit. Thanks all the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.